Having poor folks around makes even good food taste bad. The food here is too fancy for you, isn't it? Admit that you're out of place and just go home already, lol. Sneered my former classmate James upon seeing me. Though he's the one making a scene, he's the one who doesn't fit in here. I tried to speak up to shut James up, thinking about the inconvenience to the shop. But my wife, sitting next to me, stopped me from speaking. Someone rude enough to say that on first meeting deserves to be fired. When my wife said that, James tilted his head in confusion. Meanwhile, my wife continued to glare at James with eyes full of anger. Seeing my wife like that, I sensed James's life had hit its end right then and there. My name's Ethan. I've been working at the same company I joined as a new grad for over 10 years, now a 35-year-old man. Thankfully, I've been highly regarded by HR, currently holding the position of department head. With responsibilities within the department, my workload is quite heavy, to be honest. However, I find fulfillment in it. I have a wife, and we've been happily married for 5 years now. Although we were not blessed with children, neither of us was in much of a hurry, as we both love our jobs. I grew up in a single-parent household due to my parents' divorce when I was young. I imagine it was tough for my mother to raise me single-handedly. Wanting to give my hard-working mother a better life, I devoted myself to studying. I thought if I studied hard and went to a good university, I could work for a reputable company and earn a good income. My mother, despite working multiple part-time jobs, supported me through university, covering my tuition fees, and I'm forever grateful to her. In order to repay the kindness of raising me, I have been sending money to my mother every month since I graduated from college and started working. However, I must say, the amount is quite minimal. Because my mother, out of concern for me, said that the minimum amount would suffice. We weren't wealthy, but I was proud of my mother. But there was one awful person who mocked me for being poor. His name is James, who has been looking down on me since we were first-year middle school students together. Poor people can't even afford to take a bath. You make the whole classroom stink just by being here. To save on water and gas bills, I only bathed in the tub 2 to 3 times a week, but I showered and washed myself thoroughly every day. Yet, James's ostentatious nose pinching made me wonder if I truly smelled bad. At one point, I scrubbed my body so hard that it turned bright red, and noticing the change, my mother, worried, reassured me countless times that everything was okay. James persistently harassed me even after that. During our lunch break at school, he would go out of his way to come up to my seat and say, "Your lunchbox is as plain as ever. This is mostly frozen food, isn't it?" And took my lunch to show it off to the class. Many classmates were unhappy with James's behavior, but he was also a leader figure in the class, and moreover, his father worked for a well-known company. Furthermore, the teachers turned a blind eye, allowing James's behavior to escalate. Unable to tolerate his repeated harassment, there was a time I resisted. You ridicule me for being poor, but maybe it's your heart that's impoverished because you couldn't learn how to interact with people from your parents. My words made James's face turn red with anger, and from there, the harassment worsened. Since then, I become socially awkward. I always had a gloomy look on my face because I was looked down upon every day and had no confidence in myself. Especially with women, I had no luck. I had many opportunities to get involved with them due to my work, but each time I blamed myself, wondering if should talk to them. However, a turning point came for me. One of my few friends introduced me to a woman who would become my wife in the future. My friend, busy with work to support his parents, noticed my lack of interest in the opposite sex and forcibly arranged a date for me, saying it would be fine to meet her just once. Without the time or opportunity to persuade him otherwise, I reluctantly dressed up for the date. My wife's first impression was that she was a cool woman. For my insecure self, she was the complete opposite, and I couldn't help but be captivated. Not flashy, but admiring her in a quality dress and sharp features, wife blushed shyly. Seeing her gesture, I somehow felt a sense of destiny. Then, after going out for meals several times, we started dating. About a year later, we decided to get married. When I asked why she thought marrying me was a good idea, my wife smiled and replied, I saw how diligent you were in your work. I thought we had similar values, and I fell in love with the way you looked at people's inner lives and praised them. For me, who had been living recklessly, her words felt like validation for my entire life. As I tearfully expressed my emotions, my wife gently stroked my head. I'll never forget the warmth of her hands at that moment. With the additional reasons of filial piety and life with my wife, I worked even harder. Amidst this, I was offered a promotion at work. The old me might have lacked confidence and declined. But now, I happily accepted and became a department head. My wife also works, so we have plenty of financial flexibility, but since neither of us are materialistic, we save most of it. However, since this year was our 5th year of marriage, we decided to make our anniversary extravagant. After planning, we booked a room at a luxury hotel and made dinner reservations. Since becoming a department head, I hadn't been able to date much, so after finalizing plans, I eagerly went to work every day. And then, on the night of our anniversary, I wore the special suit I had worn when I proposed to my wife and entered the hotel with my wife, who was even more beautifully dressed than usual. Feeling nervous in an unfamiliar setting, my wife smiled at me. "You look so tense. It's our anniversary dinner. You need to relax a bit more." "Yay, you're right." As I nervously replied, I glanced around the restaurant. Then, a man approached me. Well, isn't that Puifin? Are you James?" With a friendly pat on the shoulder, James looked down on me. "Wearing such a fancy suit. Could it be that you become a trophy husband of the lady next to you? LOL. James's giggling made me flash back to my memories of that time. Repeated, relentless harassment, a bitter memory where my self-esteem was completely stripped away. I would have preferred to keep them locked away forever. As I struggled to breathe, unable to respond, James tilted his head mockingly. "You still can't say anything back, huh? You're the same as you were back then. Nothing's changed, LOL. By the way, I'm working at that famous company now, living the opposite of your dull life, LOL. James proudly handed me his business card. Before I could even look at it, my wife snatched it away. "Oh, dear. Are you trying to upgrade from someone like him to me? Well, if your husband is this guy, it's no wonder, huh? LOL. Ignoring James's words, my wife stared at the business card. Then, with a faint smile, she spoke up. "Well, you are working for that company, right? How can such a person make belittling remarks about others at the beginning of an encounter? It's a shame for a famous company to lose its name, isn't it?" At my wife's words, James's eyebrows twitched. Showing his displeasure blatantly, James started shouting, "If you're married to him, you're just like him, huh? With a poor guy around, even this good meal tastes bad. The food here is too good for you, so why don't you just go home and have some cheap boxed lunch instead? LOL. My wife glared back at James. Thinking it would be best not to cause any more trouble for the restaurant, I tried to speak up despite my trembling body. But my wife stopped me. Then, she whispered to me, so only I could hear, to leave it to her. "A person who lacks common sense and is rude like you could potentially cause significant losses for the company. I'm afraid I'll have to fire you immediately." My wife's statement left both me and James dumbfounded. However, I quickly understood the situation. "No way, the company James works at." "Yes, that company. I didn't expect you to disclose where you work, but..." As we conversed, James became visibly annoyed and raised his voice. "What the hell have you been talking about all this time? Are you just a bitter, sore loser?" Wife sighed deeply at James's lack of understanding of his own position. "Let me explain it in terms even someone like you can understand. The company you work for is actually owned by my father." Upon hearing wife's words, James's face turned pale. "No way, that can't be true. If you don't believe me, that's fine, but I'll make sure to report this to my father." Ignoring James's agitation, my wife started eating the dishes that had been brought over. I couldn't help but feel a little sorry for James. He would not expect that the wife of the person he was abusing is the daughter of the president of the company he works for. However, that didn't justify his behavior. Even if he had nothing to do with me and wife, with his attitude, James would likely end up getting fired in the near future. As we silently continued eating, James clung to us. "There's no way you'd marry the president's daughter. This has to be a bluff." Despite his words, James's hands were shaking uncontrollably. He might have heard somewhere that the president had a daughter. "Since you're disturbing our anniversary celebration, please leave. Don't act all high and mighty." Wife's cold words triggered James, who suddenly lunged at her. I instinctively shielded wife and took James's fist to my back. "This is a serious assault. You attacked me in front of all these people. There are plenty of witnesses." After hearing my words, James finally seemed to realize what he had done and tried to escape. However, the restaurant staff had already called security, and he was quickly apprehended. In the end, James was taken away by the police. The anticipated anniversary turned into a turbulent one. Though I felt sorry for my wife, she comforted me, asking not to worry. He got arrested for assault, saved me the trouble of reporting to my father. I gazed at my wife, who sighed deeply, and asked her a question. "Why did you keep your identity as the president's daughter a secret? Even when we visited your parents, they didn't mention anything." "Well, I was actually planning to tell you today. You see, because I've always been treated specially as the president's daughter, everyone I dated before only cared about my money in the end. So, I came to believe that I had no self-worth. But you changed that for me." As she spoke, my wife tightly held my hand. It seemed that just as meeting my wife changed my values, meeting me allowed her to acknowledge herself. I embraced my wife, conveying 5 years' worth of love in that moment. Upon learning that my wife was the president's daughter, we went to visit my in-laws again. My wife revealing this was apparently a joyous occasion for my in-laws. From a very young age, I put her through a life of constant pressure. There were times when she would come to me in tears, saying she was afraid to trust other people. "Ethan is such a wonderful person that this girl believes in." My father-in-law's words made me feel awkward, and I shifted uncomfortably while smiling shyly. "So, what happened to that guy, James?" After chatting for a while, my wife brought up the topic to my father-in-law. It was something I had been curious about for sure. While it was certain that he would have a criminal record for assault, I hadn't seen his condition directly. My FIL's expression became a little grim. Then he began to talk about the outcome James faced. My Phil heard that after the incident, James wouldn't be able to go to work for a while. Apparently, James didn't mention anything about causing a disability incident. He was trying to get through it with excuses like having to care for his parents, or some other lame excuses. My Phil became suspicious of this sudden change, but soon he learned from online news that James had caused a disability incident. The scene of James causing a scene at the luxury hotel was captured by other angry customers, ruining the special day. The video posted on social media spread like wildfire, even making it to the online news. Of course, the news was discovered by the business partners, who demanded that James cease business with them, saying that they had long been dissatisfied with James's coercive attitude at meetings. There were also criticisms blaming the company for letting such a person loose, so my Phil conducted an internal investigation. It turned out that James had been giving new employees excessive workloads resembling harassment. Even now as an adult, it seems he could only live by looking down on others. Now that they are strangling themselves, it is a case of karma and retribution. James was immediately fired for causing significant losses to the company. When the dismissal was decided, the newcomers, who had been treated so poorly by James, cheered. If he had grown up a bit, he might not have faced such consequences. Given his pride, even if he became a criminal and lost his job, he probably wouldn't let go of the title of working for a famous company. He could foresee being rejected at interviews with big corporations time and again. It may seem insensitive, but I thought it served him right for the payback he received from his student days. A month after the incident, my wife complained of chronic nausea, so I took her to the hospital. We were worried it might be a serious illness, but the doctor gave us some surprising news. A new life was blossoming in my wife's belly. My wife and I held hands in joy. I'm thinking of putting even more effort into my work from now on, since we'll probably end up spending the savings my wife and I have been accumulating for our unborn child.